Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, August 6th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and it's happened again. Another large gathering with a lack of COVID-19 concern on display. Hundreds side by side in a local plaza. Few masks and plenty of party-like atmosphere in sight. Here is KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman with what's being done about it while others try and play by the rules.
The footage you'll see is people, they're just so close together and they're mingling around this area. And, you know, as a community, we've worked very hard to try and be socially responsible with the pandemic, yet to see these people kind of not abiding by any of the rules, and it's frustrating.
Responding to an influx of complaints from residents this week, the Ocean Beach Town Council sent a letter to city and county officials pleading for help.
They haven't been practicing any kind of social distancing or mask wearing at all, which, as you know, has been mandated by the county. So that's been going on, and the community is, quite frankly, really fed up with it.
Last night, San Diego police officers responded to the gathering. A spokesperson says no one was cited for violating state or county health orders. The department is trying to find a solution that respects both sides.
It was actually very well received in the community that they did come out and took care of the issue. But that's really the Band-Aid.
San Diego City Council member Jen Campbell, in a statement yesterday, suggested that the crowds are coming from the Wednesday's farmers markets and called on the OB Main Street Association, who puts on the market, to consider options that would, quote, make a direct positive impact for concerned OB residents. The OB Main Street Association says they aren't ruling out the possibility of including the drum circle in its farmers markets, but
we haven't met, so we need to talk about it, and the community needs to have consensus.
Association Executive Director Denny Knox also wants to see officials doing their part.
The city needs to figure out how they can operate the beachfront without going back on what the county's requiring. I mean, these are COVID restrictions. We're not making them up.
Councilmember Campbell's office issued a statement today saying the gatherings are out of control and they are actively working with the Main Street Association and local officials to ensure public health is prioritized moving forward. The drum circle is not anything new in Ocean Beach, but residents are just asking for people to abide by rules meant to slow the virus's spread.
We, as a community, feel disrespected. You know, we're asking them to respect OB and come down here, have fun, do it in a safe way with the social distancing, and just don't leave your trash all strewn all over the place.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Time to shut down, start over, and do it right. That was the stern message to Governor Newsom today from 1,200 health professionals. With COVID-19 surging in California, the health experts are demanding the governor prioritize public health. CalPIRG officials say a reset needs to begin now, and that lives come first. They're asking to close all non-essential businesses, limit restaurants to takeout only, and masks be worn at all times. Without these measures, they say things will only get worse. San Diego County is reporting 6 new outbreaks of coronavirus, including one in a preschool. The county has identified 31 community outbreaks in the past week. 5 more deaths and 263 new cases were also announced today. Nationwide, cases are quickly approaching 5 million. This as unemployment concerns and the uncertainty of schools having in-person classes continue. Here's Gerald Forges.
With COVID cases soaring across the country, health officials continue to preach the same message to help fight against the virus.
Masks, physical separation, avoiding crowds, outdoor things better than indoor. You can get the level down low enough that you can then control it much better.
The pandemic continuing to cause a ripple effect on the economy. Grim numbers released by the Department of Labor shows that 1.2 million Americans filed for unemployment last week. Congress still looking for a compromise on a stimulus deal to help Americans affected.
We have been making some progress, proceeding in a positive way. We're not there yet. I have said I see a light at the end of the tunnel. We just don't know how long the tunnel is.
The White House says if Congress does not pass a bill by Friday, the president will take executive action, though it's not clear he has that kind of power.
Making sure that eviction protection is done. He will do that through executive action, making sure that those enhanced unemployment payments that stopped because Democrats refused to say yes just a few days ago, he will do executive actions.
As uncertainty continues over a stimulus deal, schools are also in limbo on whether or not to go virtual or have in-person classes. Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
Poway Unified is now the first district to go fully virtual through the new year. The district had asked parents to choose their preference, but with the county still on the state watch list, officials opted to go online only. In an email to parents, Superintendent Marianne Kim Phelps stated the new metrics made it impossible for any San Diego schools to reopen campuses. She said the decision would avoid uncertainty for families, staff, and students. The new school year begins on September 2nd. Two men who attacked Black Lives Matter protesters in Imperial Beach are now facing felony charges. Along with getting justice for those who were attacked, the district attorney told KPBS reporter John Carroll she's also sending a message to the community about hate crimes.
It was Sunday, June 7th. Black Lives Matter protesters were demonstrating across from the pier in Imperial Beach. Marcus Boyd was videoing a group of men who were harassing the protesters, yelling and throwing eggs at them, when a man in a red shirt came up from behind and sucker punched him. Boyd fell backwards into the street. He wasn't seriously hurt. The district attorney says the man in that red shirt is 38-year-old Jeffrey Brooks. He and a relative, 32-year-old Henry Brooks, are now facing felony assault and battery charges, along with hate crime allegations.
The hate element is based on race, which, and in this particular case, that the race is African American.
Stephan says her office has ramped up the prosecution of hate crimes, most of which she says are directed against African Americans. She says hate crimes are particularly insidious because they affect more than just the people being attacked.
It kind of has a ripple effect of hurting everyone that shares that person's race, their religion, their ethnicity.
Stephan says hate crimes of any nature will not be tolerated. Her office has created an online form and a helpline to encourage the reporting of hate crimes. Neither of the Brooks men are in custody. If they're caught and convicted, Jeffrey Brooks faces up to 3 years in prison. Henry Brooks faces up to 6 years. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Today, the San Diego City Council passed a resolution calling on federal law enforcement to keep out of local policing efforts unless they're expressly asked by the city to intervene. The resolution comes after agents were sent to cities across the country during protests against police violence. Several city council members saw their actions, most notably in Portland, as infringing on protesters' First Amendment rights. California Assembly members have joined forces to pass a first-of-its-kind bill for survivors of police brutality. Current California law requires crime victims, including victims of police violence, to file a police report in order to be eligible for money from the State Victims Compensation Fund. But advocates for victims say those reports can be biased or inaccurate. Assembly Bill 767 would change that rule and allow medical records, witness testimonies, and therapy reports to serve as evidence of a crime.
To be seen and acknowledged as victims and to receive the support that they needed. No victim should have to fight for justice and fight for resources.
San Diego Assemblywoman Shirley Weber is one of the co-authors of the bill. The sponsors hope to have it to Governor Gavin Newsom by the end of this month. If passed, California would be the first state to eliminate the requirement of a police report. San Diego City Council members are reviewing several reports on a bad real estate deal costing taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. The council approved the purchase of the high-rise at 101 Ash Street in 2016, but it needed more repairs than anticipated, including asbestos removal. Costs are now estimated at $115 million, and the city has paid $20 million in rent so far for the vacant building. The widening scandal prompted the head of the city's real estate assets department to resign. Members are now hearing options that include fixing the problems, selling for a loss, or trying to get out of the deal altogether. For weeks, members of the Kumeyaay Nation have been protesting construction at the border wall, saying their cultural heritage sites are being destroyed. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us human remains have been positively identified and local tribes are taking action.
It stretches for 14 miles along rugged terrain. The quickly rising wall now cuts through areas that the Kumeyaay Nation, a collection of native tribes based on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border, consider a major thoroughfare for their people.
It was used for generations before white settlers arrived. Burial sites, villages, and other culturally sensitive locations dot the landscape. But the Kumeyaay say that Customs and Border Protection, which has helped manage construction on the site, is not correctly assessing the cultural heritage that they're now building atop of.
They're using 10-year-old surveys to try to say that there aren't sites in certain areas, and when we've gone out there to protest, we've seen midden soil, which is signs of cremation. We've seen flakes, tools, grinding stones. We've seen everything out there, and that's in areas that they say that aren't artifacts.
28-year-old Cynthia Parada is a tribal council member of the La Posta Band of Mission Indians. She and other young Kumeyaay women have been leading the protest movement in the searing heat of summer in the Laguna Mountains. They've been standing in front of construction equipment and blocking access roads. Parada says the government is breaking the law by disregarding the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, known as NAGPRA. Congress enacted it in 1990 to protect and safely relocate Native burial sites.
We just want them to do it right. Right now they're waiving the laws that protect our remains, which is through NAGPRA, and they're waiving a lot of other laws as well, which is we're just not okay with because we fought so hard to get those laws to begin with, and now they're waiving them and just blowing through the work.
Last week, members of the Kumeyaay Nation were accompanied by a forensic anthropologist who says she identified what was most likely a cremated human bone.
This looks like it might be maybe a hand or foot bone.
In the past, Customs and Border Protection has reached out to Native groups to determine what to do with remains and engage in a government-to-government consultation about the best way to move forward with construction while preserving cultural heritage sites. It usually does this months before the beginning of construction. But this time, Parada says the government began construction without doing any of that.
We actually just heard about it and we went out there to see if it was true, and we seen the construction work getting done, and that's when we decided to take action because we didn't know about it. We never received any information about it.
The Kumeyaay say a representative from the Army Corps of Engineers told them the DoD is allowed to waive laws regarding burial sites because the wall construction is a matter of national defense. The money used for the wall construction is being redirected from the Pentagon's counter-narcotic budget, a transfer of money that's currently being challenged in court. Now, with further proof that CBP and the DoD are moving forward with the project without following the law, the Kumeyaay are preparing a lawsuit of their own to try to stop it.
And they're creating new access roads, they're creating new storage areas for their equipment, and none of those areas were monitored.
CBP says it had several discussions with Kumeyaay leadership and members of various tribes since June to address their specific concerns. Kumeyaay protesters and especially younger tribe members say those meetings have gone nowhere.
We're just out there simply protecting the land, protecting the history.
19-year-old Brooke Baines, who grew up on the Manzanita Reservation, has been juggling her first cashier job with helping organize the protests.
Kumeyaay women are a strong group of women, so I would say it's really important that the young women are leading it because a lot of things in this world are ran by men, and older men at that.
Baines says that's why they have to continue direct action, to keep going to the wall to try to stop construction.
I stay in prayer while I'm out there. I'm praying the whole time that I'm out there for safety of my people, for protection, for the desecration to stop, and understanding and education for the people that surround me that are doing these things. So I'm not really thinking about me and myself and my body. I'm I'm praying.
Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
A new lawsuit aims to put the National Rifle Association out of business. New York's Attorney General is alleging that high-ranking executives diverted millions of dollars for lavish personal trips, no-show contracts for associates, and other questionable expenditures. Meanwhile, the Attorney General for Washington, D.C. is filing a similar lawsuit. A spokesman for the NRA's legal team had no immediate comment. They help fight fires before they even break out, and now the San Diego Urban Corps is hard at work helping homeowners protect their property. As KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson shows us, they're using grant dollars to do it.
Okay, great.
Lucille Cheng says the Urban Corps crew that cleared her steep backyard has taken a load off her mind.
We can still have a fire, but I just know it can't come that close to my house now because my brush is cleared.
Cheng has lived here on the edge of Manzanita Canyon for decades. She paid a lot of money to clear her yard in past years, and she admits she's been cited when the work didn't get done. Thick brush can fuel fast-moving wildfires.
It's not always easy to create this defensible space, and that's why our crews are just awesome.
The Corps' Daniel Johnson says much of the heavy lifting got done in the morning before the heat of the day set in. Even so, it remains difficult to work on the steep canyon slopes. That's why the Urban Corps' effort, funded by San Diego Gas and Electric and administered by the San Diego Foundation, is welcomed by local residents.
We are looking to remove any extra brush, any excess brush, any excess plant life that isn't a specialty plant or anything like that. But any type of excess flammable material.
And clearing the brush along this particular hillside will help this home, but there are many homes in this canyon that could use that help as well. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
All right, we're talking about the weather that is going to be beautiful here over the next couple of days. We'll start out with some early morning fog as we head into your Friday, but pleasant during the afternoon. And then the good news is for you weekenders or getting excited about the weekend, of course, dry weather on tap, San Diego style, really nice. But we do have that marine layer that continues to play into the cards here in the next couple of days. We'll see that during the early morning up till about the late morning at times, and then it burns off, and then throughout the afternoons we look beautiful here right through sundown. Very dry weather continues here across Southern California, and note some of these spots here that I've been watching here. Some places are generally below the norm slightly in some spots when it comes to actual rainfall. We see that dry wedge of air, that's for sure. Note the area of orange. That signifies some of the brightest areas. A little hiccup there from the satellite, but in general you get the picture. We've had some dry weather, but for tonight, look at those temperatures falling back to the 40s in some spots around Ramona, and also, how about San Diego, right around 62 for that overnight low. Now rolling into the day tomorrow, beautiful sunshine after somewhat of a foggy start right along the coast there, but inland warming up very nice around Ramona, back towards, say, Mount Laguna into the mid 70s. So nice little spread here of temperatures, but the real heat is much further towards Borrego Springs there at 104. All right, so as we head forward, take a look at the coast here. Temperatures in the 70s, starting out with some fog, then going over that sunshine. Inland, a little bit of a bump in the temperatures by a good 10 degrees here, but we stay sunny right into next week. And throughout the mountains as well, temperatures here into the 70s, but actually climbing closer to the 80-degree mark as we head into the new week to come. And let's also take you back to the desert here where the heat is on for sure. 104 on Friday, 109 on Sunday and Monday as well. For KPBS, I'm meteorologist Chris Allen.
Time is running out for small businesses to apply for loans through the county and federal government. The local grant program is closing tomorrow, and Saturday is the deadline to apply for the federal Paycheck Protection Program. The San Diego and Imperial County Small Business Development Center says they've helped local businesses claim just under $100 million so far. But there's been confusion about what's available and who is eligible.
You know, not knowing what to apply for and to kind of cut through the noise. And so that's been the biggest issue. So our outreach efforts have really focused on trying to get folks to talk one-on-one with an advisor to then kind of organize what their particular thoughts are and what they should apply for and what's best for their business.
There is $110 billion left in the national fund created with the CARES Act. The Small Business Development Center is encouraging those who applied before to contact them again. State lawmakers hoping to create more affordable housing have worked to make granny flats cheaper and easier to build. But iNewsSource investigative reporter Cody Delaney found San Diego might not be complying with state laws.
If you're one of hundreds of property owners who built a granny flat in San Diego since 2017, you might have been overcharged thousands of dollars in fees on your permit. Construction fees on new granny flats less than 750 square feet should have been waived at the beginning of the year. And some property owners should have qualified for breaks in water and sewer costs as well. San Diego resident John Sewell Thurston thinks he is one of those people. He says he has contacted everyone he can think of in government at the local and state level to try and get an answer.
And basically, I got a lot of circular firing squad answers. No one would just emphatically say, oh, that's because blank, or oops, we made a mistake.
An iNewsSource analysis of granny flat permits found San Diego may still be charging property owners these fees, but city officials have not provided any records that show compliance and did not answer questions. And based on the city's record keeping, there's no way to know for certain how many people overpaid. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Cody Delaney.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The party is over in LA. Mayor Eric Garcetti is threatening to shut off water and power to houses and businesses that host large gatherings.
We don't show up and suddenly shut people's water and power off, but the city provides that to places that are in criminal violation of public health orders. We have the right to be able to make sure that more lives are not lost.
Starting tomorrow, police can ask LA's Department of Water and Power to shut off services to those hosting parties within 48 hours. It comes after a massive mansion party over the weekend that ended in a deadly shooting.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we ask one of the president's top economic advisors about plans to help millions of unemployed Americans. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Prices are soaring at supermarkets, and it's not just because people are dining out less. New data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis shows spikes in several food staples. From February to June, poultry prices rose nearly 11%. Egg prices are up 10%, and cereals and fresh vegetables are up 4%. Beef and veal prices recorded the highest climb at 20%. Analysts say some are eating fewer and smaller meals, which could have a ripple effect.
If kids aren't eating well now, they don't grow up to be as healthy. They don't do as well in school, and that has impacts further down the line. They don't make as much as adults.
And while there's no significant shortage of food, disruptions in the supply chain created scarcities and higher prices. Major meat processors shuttered months ago when employees got sick, and operations have since slowed from new safety practices. While many businesses have taken a hit during this pandemic, others have been booming. As Mandy Gaither reports, some in real estate say the coronavirus is pushing younger home buyers out of the city and into their first homes.
This is what we're desperate for in the city.
For many young home buyers, COVID-19 is making the green space of the suburbs more attractive.
The value of the city to us was being around all the people, being able to go to all the restaurants and the culture, like the museums and the plays and everything. And so you remove all of that, it's difficult to justify paying the rent, being in a small confined space, and having no access to being outdoors by yourself.
First-time homebuyer applications jumped 20% in June compared to that same month the year before, according to CoreLogic, a company that analyzes business statistics.
We're based in Darien, Connecticut. So in the first 6 months, which is really incredible when you think about
how much business was not being able to be done during the pandemic. Fairfield County as a whole did about $2.36 billion in sales, and that's 12% over the same period last year. And even better than that, if we're just looking from the end of June to the end of June, pending sales are up 49%. It's really skyrocketed.
I think the majority of what we've seen are people that have been considering moving to the suburbs from the city. And it's really kind of been the nudge that's got them to the burbs, just with everything going on in the pandemic.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And here's another look at today's top stories. 1,200 health professionals are calling on Governor Newsom to shut down California again. CalPIRG officials are asking to close all non-essential businesses, limit restaurants to takeout only, and masks be worn at all times. Without these measures, they say things will only get worse. The Ocean Beach Town Council sent a letter to the city and county asking for help after several large gatherings. Last night, police officers responded to calls about crowds, but says no one was cited for violating health orders. It's believed the crowds are coming from the Wednesday farmers markets. And 2 men who attacked Black Lives Matter protesters in Imperial Beach on June 7th are now facing felony assault and battery charges, along with hate crime allegations. An African-American man was sucker punched from behind. The alleged attackers both face multiple years in prison if they're convicted. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.